Welcome to Hong Kong Brief. The content of the briefing includes: Ka-shing's partner urges governments to listen to more voices. Tencent unveils big-budget open-world game led by GTA veteran. Japanese shares fall, yen extends run on BOJ bets, markets wrap. Hong Kong's new election law thins the candidate pool, giving voters little option in Sunday's polls. Messi, Inter-Miami schedule match in Hong Kong on February 4. Ka-shing's partner urges governments to listen to more voices. Bloomberg. Selina Chow, longtime partner of Hong Kong billionaire Ka-shing, has called on governments to listen to more voices in order to avoid making poor policy decisions in a fast-changing world. Chow emphasized the need for counter-proposals to power and counterfactual thinking. Her comments come ahead of Hong Kong's first citywide election since revamping its electoral system to effectively ban pro-democracy candidates. Chow stated that if governments get stuck in normalcy bias and bad policies, it will cost them dearly. She also noted that international investors are still confused and cautious about Hong Kong due to China's tightening political grip and a slowdown in deals. Chow called on the government to do everything possible to let the people live well and happily. Tencent unveils big-budget open-world game led by GTA veteran. Bloomberg. Tencent has revealed Last Sentinel, a big-budget console game developed by its California-based Lightspeed LA studio. The open-world adventure game is set in a dystopian future Tokyo and has been 4 years in development. The game is part of Tencent's push to create new intellectual property from scratch and expand globally. Tencent has been increasing its efforts to acquire foreign gaming assets and talent in recent years to complement its ownership of Riot Games and large stake in Epic Games. The company's Lightspeed Studios is best known for making PUBG Mobile and Peacekeeper Elite. Japanese shares fall, yen extends run on BOJ bets, markets wrap. Yahoo! The yen has gained 1.1% on a belief that the Bank of Japan, BOJ, is nearing the end of its negative interest rate policy. Its shares fell and bonds followed suit. However, analysts have said that the decline of the stock market will be limited due to a weak yen not being a bad thing for all Japanese companies. Following the Brexit vote, Japan's economy shrank more than expected in Q3, suggesting a more fragile recovery than anticipated. It is believed that this could give the BOJ reason to delay policy normalization. Traders are on watch for clarification from Governor Kazuo Ueda's recent comments that his job is going to be more challenging from the year-end, fueling speculation that the BOJ will start lifting its sub-zero benchmark rate soon. The BOJ is expected to consider a surprise hike in December, however, Krishna Guha at Evercore does not expect this to happen. Hong Kong's new election law thins the candidate pool, giving voters little option in Sunday's polls. The Toronto Star. Hong Kong's district council elections will have no pro-democracy candidates for the first time in 4 decades. This is due to the increasing obstacles placed before candidates, with the pool of politicians becoming less diverse and largely made up of those loyal to mainland China. These obstacles include requiring candidates to secure endorsements from at least 9 members of government-appointed committees, most of which are loyal to Beijing. The July amendment also eliminates most directly elected seats on councils, reducing the number from 90% to just 20%. These changes have resulted in some pro-democracy politicians failing to gather the necessary nominations, including some pro-government politicians. The lack of diversity is widely seen as a result of the government's crackdown on the pro-democracy movement, which followed the 2019 protests. The pro-democracy camp achieved a stunning victory in the last elections 4 years ago, which was a rebuke to the government's handling of the protests. Messi, Inter-Miami schedule match in Hong Kong on February 4. Associated Press. Lionel Messi and Inter Miami are set to play a match in Hong Kong on February 4 as part of the club's first international tour. The team will face a team composed of top players from the First Division League in Hong Kong. Inter Miami had previously planned to play in China last month, but those plans fell through. The club also has plans to play in El Salvador on January 19, and additional preseason matches and destinations will be announced in the coming weeks. We didn't know if they'd shoot us when Brett Sutton faced the Taliban. The Sydney Morning Herald. Brett Sutton, the former Chief Health Officer, CHO, of Victoria, Australia, reflects on his experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic in an interview. Sutton recounts a moment during his youth when he was left alone in the jungle during a trip to Guatemala, which he likens to the uncertain and challenging nature of the pandemic response. Sutton was known for his calm but blunt advice during the crisis, and he recalls the weight of the decisions made in the pandemic war room. Despite the vitriol and death threats he faced during his tenure, Sutton remains dedicated to healthcare, now working as head of health and biosecurity at the CSIRO. Sutton's experiences as a doctor have often brought him into dangerous situations, from negotiating with the Taliban in Afghanistan to treating patients in conflict zones. He is driven by a desire to alleviate suffering and has been deeply affected by the poverty and hardships he has witnessed throughout his life. Sutton's journey to becoming a doctor was unconventional, as he did not follow the typical private school route that many of his peers did. He was raised by a widow in Croydon and developed a love for animals and mathematics, but ultimately chose medicine for its high stakes and the opportunity to help others. Now at the CSIRO, Sutton oversees various health and biosecurity initiatives, including monitoring tropical diseases and addressing the impacts of climate change. He believes that threats are often underestimated and that collaboration between states is crucial for effective disease control. Despite the challenges he faced as CHO, Sutton remains dedicated to his work and enjoys the shorter hours he now has. He plans to spend more time with his family and continue his work at the CSIRO. Journalists' rights group counts 94 media workers killed worldwide, most at an alarming rate in Gaza. Associated Press. The International Federation of Journalists, IFJ, has expressed deep concern over the number of journalists killed globally in 2023, with Israel's war with Hamas being the deadliest conflict for journalists in over 30 years. The IFJ reported that 94 journalists have been killed this year and almost 400 others have been imprisoned. The group called for better protection for media workers and for their attackers to be held accountable. The IFJ also highlighted the dangers faced by journalists in Ukraine, Afghanistan, the Philippines, India, China, and Bangladesh. It noted a drop in the number of journalists killed in North and South America, but expressed concern over crimes against media workers going unpunished. Africa remained the least affected region, but the IFJ highlighted 3 murders in Cameroon and Lesotho that have yet to be fully investigated. Xi's quest for ethnic unity turns Genghis Khan into new danger. Bloomberg. Chinese President Xi Jinping is cracking down on ethnic minorities in China's peripheral regions, fearing that their diversity poses a threat to the Communist Party. This campaign is part of Xi's efforts to forge a national Chinese identity that promotes the culture and language of the ethnic Han majority. Inner Mongolia, a region of China with a significant Mongolian population, has been a particular focus of these efforts. The Chinese government has implemented measures to water down ethnic differences in Inner Mongolia, including rewriting history, banning theater performances, and restricting the Mongolian language in schools. These moves have led to protests and criticism both domestically and internationally. Western countries have already taken action against China over human rights abuses in regions like Xinjiang, and Inner Mongolia could become another flashpoint. Furthermore, these measures pose a risk for investors due to concerns about domestic unrest and possible punitive action from the US and its allies. Xi's campaign against ethnic minorities is driven by a fear that divisions in Chinese society could be exploited by domestic and foreign adversaries. Open House, Hong Kong's property downturn may yet save century-old townhouse. Bloomberg. A real estate slump in Hong Kong is helping to preserve a 1920s townhouse in the mid-levels district that is up for sale for the first time in decades. The property market in Hong Kong is depressed, with government revenue from land sales set for a record low this year as developers hold off adding to their land bank. Sales of homes are also on track to be the lowest ever, and home prices have plunged more than 20% from their 2021 high. Typically, a low-rise property like the townhouse in question would be demolished for redevelopment rights, but demand has collapsed and mortgage rates have surged, making redevelopment less appealing. The townhouse is on the market for 141 million Hong Kong dollars, $18 million. Potential buyers include a family office looking to convert the building into a boutique hotel, as well as a real estate developer. The property is a Grade 2 listed building, meaning it is of special merit and should be selectively preserved, but redevelopment is still possible. Distressed debt firm SC Lowy finds China credit uninvestable. Bloomberg. Credit investor SC Lowy Financial HK Limited has limited exposure to China and considers the credit space in the country to be uninvestable due to murky legal proceedings and poor corporate disclosure. The lack of clear legal process and financial information makes China more of a macro thesis rather than a detailed corporate analysis, according to the firm's CEO, Michelle Lowy. SC Lowy has been reducing its exposure to China since at least May 2022 due to uncertainties and longer-than-expected debt restructuring by the country's distressed developers. However, the firm remains optimistic about the prospect of private credit in Asia, particularly in Korea and India. China stocks test critical support levels as sell-off deepens. Bloomberg. Chinese stock benchmarks are approaching critical technical levels, indicating the possibility of further losses. The global pessimism surrounding China's economy, fragile recovery, and real estate crisis has led to continued foreign outflows. Moody's downgrade of China's sovereign and corporate ratings has also added to the headwinds. The Hang Seng Index is nearing a long-term trend line, while the Shanghai Composite Index and CSI 300 Index are also approaching key support levels. These factors suggest that the Chinese stock market may face further declines. Hermès created Europe's biggest family fortune after spurning LVMH. Bloomberg. Hermès has become Europe's richest family, with a combined fortune of $151 billion, thanks to the success of the luxury brand. The company has thrived by maintaining its originality and singularity, according to David Dubois, associate professor of marketing at INSEAD, who teaches a luxury and fashion class. Hermès' success has been boosted by its focus on craftsmanship, perception of exclusivity, and the scarcity of its products, as well as its ability to adapt without a revolution. The company's strong performance has set it apart from rivals, with revenues continuing to grow in double digits even as demand for high-end goods has slowed. The yuan is finally showing some muscle in international trade. Bloomberg. The yuan's share as a global payments currency has almost doubled this year, reaching 3.6% in October, according to Bloomberg. While the US dollar remains dominant at 47%, analysts suggest the increase in yuan use could be the most serious challenge to the greenback's dominance yet. China's currency is being boosted in part by Chinese banks lending overseas in their local currency and through the country's currency swap lines with other central banks. Advocates say a Mexican startup is illegally selling a health drink from an endangered fish. Associated Press. Mexico-based startup, the Blue Formula, has been accused of violating international trade law by selling a health supplement made from endangered totoaba fish to several countries, including the US and China. Environmental watchdogs claim that the company may also be selling fish that has been illegally caught. The product is a sachet of powder containing collagen taken from the fish. Under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, any export for sale of totoaba fish is illegal unless bred in captivity with the correct permit. The Blue Formula claims to source fish from Cygnus Ocean, a farm with a permit to breed totoaba, and to release farmed fish back into the wild. However, Cygnus Ocean does not have a permit for commercial export. OpenAI was pretty portable. Bloomberg. OpenAI's decision to rehire Sam Altman after he left to join Microsoft has shed light on the power dynamics between a company's board and its employees. In an open letter, OpenAI staff threatened to quit and join Microsoft if Altman was not reinstated. While the threat was not enforceable, it highlighted the fact that employees hold significant power within a company, particularly if they are loyal to a specific leader. The incident also exposed the growing trend of employee tenders, where private companies allow employees and early investors to cash out their shares. This liquidity option, combined with the ability to raise billions of dollars from private investors, has allowed companies to avoid going public. A recent paper on population aging and bank risk-taking suggests that having many small banks could exacerbate the problem of a lack of borrowers in aging towns. Small banks may struggle to find suitable lending opportunities in their local communities, forcing them to make riskier loans elsewhere. This could pose a challenge to small banks with a limited customer base. The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, SVB, earlier this year also demonstrated the challenge of matching borrowers and savers. Startups, which were SVB's main customers, had significant funding from venture capital and thus did not require bank loans. This left SVB with an excess of deposits and no suitable lending opportunities, resulting in poor asset allocation decisions. The role of financial printers in securities offerings and public company mergers has diminished significantly with advancements in technology. Previously, printers played a crucial role in finalizing and printing securities documents, often working overnight to meet tight deadlines. However, computers now allow for easier document formatting and filing, reducing the need for traditional financial printers. While some printing services still exist, their role has shifted to providing glossy photo spreads for startup founders. Well, folks, another week has come and gone, and it's time for me, your friendly neighborhood 6 doctor, to wrap things up. We've had quite the mix of news this week, from calls for governments to listen to more voices to the rise of the yuan as a global payments currency. So, let's dive in and take a closer look. First up, we had Selena Chow, partner of Ka-shing, calling on governments to be more open to different perspectives and counter-proposals. As we all know, poor policy decisions can have disastrous consequences, so it's important for governments to listen to a wide range of voices. And speaking of Hong Kong, international investors are still cautious about the city due to China's tightening political grip. It's a delicate situation, and the government needs to do everything it can to ensure the people can live well and happily. In gaming news, Tencent has unveiled a new open-world game, Last Sentinel, developed by its California-based studio. The game has been 4 years in the making and is part of Tencent's push to create new intellectual property and expand globally. It's exciting to see companies like Tencent investing in new games and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Moving on to finance, the yen has gained ground on the belief that the Bank of Japan is nearing the end of its negative interest rate policy. This has led to a decline in Japanese shares and bonds. However, analysts believe that the decline in the stock market will be limited, as a weak yen is not necessarily a bad thing for all Japanese companies. It will be interesting to see how this plays out in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, the upcoming district council elections will have no pro-democracy candidates for the first time in 4 decades. The government's crackdown on the pro-democracy movement has resulted in a lack of diversity among candidates, with most being loyal to mainland China. It's a concerning development, and many are worried about the future of democracy in Hong Kong. On a lighter note, Lionel Messi and Inter Miami are set to play a match in Hong Kong as part of the club's first international tour. It's always exciting to see top players like Messi in action, and I'm sure fans in Hong Kong are looking forward to the match. In other news, Brett Sutton, the former Chief Health Officer of Victoria, Australia, reflected on his experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic. Sutton's dedication to healthcare is admirable, and his work in dangerous situations, such as negotiating with the Taliban in Afghanistan, is truly remarkable. It's clear that he is driven by a desire to alleviate suffering and make a difference in the world. Turning to the media, the International Federation of Journalists expressed deep concern over the number of journalists killed globally this year. Israel's war with Hamas was the deadliest conflict for journalists in over 30 years. It's a stark reminder of the risks journalists face in their pursuit of truth and the importance of protecting press freedom. Shifting gears, Chinese President Xi Jinping's crackdown on ethnic minorities in China has raised concerns both domestically and internationally. The government's efforts to forge a national Chinese identity have led to protests and criticism, and there are fears that this could become another flashpoint for China. It's a delicate situation, and one that could have implications for investors and global relations. In real estate news, the property slump in Hong Kong is helping to preserve a 1920s townhouse in the mid-levels district. Typically, a property like this would be demolished for redevelopment, but with demand down and mortgage rates up, redevelopment is less appealing. It's an interesting turn of events and a reminder that even in a challenging market, there can be unexpected opportunities. Speaking of challenges, credit investor SC Lowy Financial has limited exposure to China and considers the credit space in the country to be uninvestable. The lack of clear legal processes and poor corporate disclosure make it difficult for investors to assess risk. However, the firm remains optimistic about the prospect of private credit in other parts of Asia. And finally, Chinese stock benchmarks are approaching critical support levels, indicating the possibility of further losses. The global pessimism surrounding China's economy and real estate crisis has led to continued foreign outflows and a decline in stock prices. It's a challenging time for investors, but as always, it's important to stay informed and make informed decisions. Well, that's all from me for this week. I hope you've enjoyed our time together, and as always, I welcome your thoughts and questions. So, what do you make of this week's news? Do you agree with Salina Chow's call for governments to listen to more voices? Are you excited about Tencent's new game? And what are your thoughts on the rise of the yuan as a global payments currency? I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the 6 degrees. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.